Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to PLNU's virtual estate planning seminar, Purposeful Estate Planning. We're so grateful you're able to join us. Today, you'll be learning about the importance and value of wills, trusts, and other estate planning and income-producing strategies. At PLNU, we believe God calls us to participate in bringing about His kingdom in a unique and deeply personal way. Today, we're going to ask you, who are you called to be? I'm William Burvitt from the Office of University Advancement, and I will serve as today's moderator. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items before I introduce our speakers. First, I'd like to encourage you all to post questions in the chat function. You can see the chat function at the bottom of your screen. You simply click on the chat function, a box will pop up and you can enter in your question. We'll have ample time at the end of today's presentation to go over all of your questions. The questions we don't get to, we'll be able to provide a follow-up with you directly. Third, we're also going to be sending out some follow-up materials with our contact information, a survey, and a recording of today's presentation and slides. So today we have two fantastic speakers who have decades of experience in charitable and estate gift planning. I'd like to first introduce Dr. Steve Seeley, the Senior Director of Philanthropy and Planned Giving at PLNU. Steve has overseen the Office of Planned Giving here for over 25 years and has worked with hundreds of families to help plan and achieve their philanthropic goals. I'd also like to introduce Ron Webb, attorney at law. Ron has been practicing law in the areas of estate planning, business, and corporate law for over 25 years. Both Steve and Rod are proud alums of PLNU and have been working closely together for over 20 years. Also, Kelly Smith, our Vice President for University Advancement, will be joining us to share with you an overview of the Loma Relief Fund, which was established to help both our students and university during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let me pass it over to Steve.
Thank you, Will. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a joy to be able to share with you some exciting concepts that I think can bring a great deal of peace to each of your lives and can help our families to be in a much better place. So I want to just encourage you, if you would, to consider the poll. We're calling it polling question 1. There are 3 questions that you are going to see, and I want to encourage you to choose the one that really helps us, or really multiple ones. Tell us about yourself. What applies? Are you an alum of Pasadena College or Point Loma Nazarene University? Do you currently have a will or trust? Number 2. Or 3, I need to update my will or trust. We'll take just a few moments, but if you would, check the box that allows that to indicate your choice and then submit it. This will help us as we go forward. I'm glad all of you are working so hard.
I'm sure they didn't realize there was going to be a test in part of this.
We're going to keep it easy. This is an open book test. All right. I hope you all submitted that. We want to move along. So let me welcome you to the beautiful campus of PLNU. You're going to see some wonderful background slides that are on our presentation today. And if you've been on the campus, you understand where many of these locations are. We welcome you back at any time. It's a great place, but it's really about people. And that's why we're here today, is that we want to help you understand a little more about some of the things that you're going to learn that can protect your family and yourself so much. So what will you learn today? We're going to be talking about reasons to plan, how to save big on taxes, and then in estate planning, wills and trusts, giving through estate planning, tax saving strategies, and income producing strategies. We've discovered through the years that these are very, very motivating to many of our people that we work with. And our Office of University Advancement is here to serve you in many, many ways. We look forward to assisting you both today and in the coming days as we help you to get ready in every way.
So, like any good lawyer, I have to give you the obligatory disclaimer to tell you that the purpose of this presentation is educational in nature, right? We're trying to help you understand new ideas. It's not intended to give you legal advice. Estate planning is a very fact-specific and technical area, and so we encourage you to deal with your financial and legal advisors to deal with your specific situation. But today we're trying to just educate you on some options that might be applicable to you. So let's look at why we give.
Thank you, Ron. Well, as followers of God and Jesus Christ, we live by a higher code than most people. We give of our lives out of compassion, sharing our blessings, the quality of life that God has blessed us with. We believe that we each want to do our part. And many of us, we've taught our children, we've mentored others to make a difference in the world.
As part of your planning, there are a number of things that can occur. One is if you're willing to plan your gift, Congress is willing to provide a tax break in a number of ways. Second of all, depending on how you plan, you can end up with lifetime income and as a result, having a larger net worth. And second of all, you can look at ways that you can perpetuate your legacy and the impact you have beyond your life. So that's one of what we're looking at today, is just ways that we can help Point Loma and the mission that it has and continue our legacy.
So who is a great philanthropist? Many of us don't feel like we fit in that category. But if you really consider it, philanthropy has to do with how we spend our time, the effort we use in our lives, the income that we have, our property. But then taxes, how can that affect us? But all of us are philanthropists in some important way.
So the next test you get to have is our next polling question is are you interested in finding more ways to first volunteer your time or tithe your income in giving to worthy causes, or give while avoiding taxes? As the poll comes up on your screen, we'd encourage you to participate in that and look at how you might become a better philanthropist, not only with your time, but with your talents that God has given each of us.
So please go ahead and indicate on the questionnaire right in front of you the ways that you want to be more involved. You know, who are you called to be? Go ahead and select your choices and submit them. We're going to try to get that polling question up for you.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay, thank you. Technology is a wonderful thing, isn't it, folks? Having a Zoom call, we're learning all about it in new ways today. Go ahead and indicate your choice there if you would. And again, we're not setting you up in any way. We just want you to know that as you develop as the steward that God wants you to be, these are all ways that help you to invest in your own lives. And that idea of stewardship comes through, and it'll help all of us. So go ahead and finish your submitting if you would. All right, thank you very much. We can see the results here is that most people want to give while avoiding taxes. Many of us are interested in tithing or giving to worthy causes, and we believe in volunteering our time. But we know how valuable time is, and we're all feeling stretched right now in this pandemic time. Okay, thank you so much. Well, this next slide will make a lot of sense to a lot of people here today. It was back in 1913. The world was at war. We just finished really World War I, and our government needed money. And they said among themselves, as politicians, legislators do, how can we build more roads? How can we build our military? How do we have the infrastructure that our people need? And they came up with a great idea that's there in the bottom of your page, taxes. But what has evolved now is a very complex system that involves tax and charity, two parts of the same system. We call it personal and social capital. But then it even divides further. You see the personal capital on the left and the social capital, but the social capital really divides itself in different ways. Our government would be glad to take all the tax dollars and invest it socially as they choose to, or they allow us through charity to do that. But interestingly, social capital can be minimized by the government, and we can increase what we give to charity if we know how to do it and if we plan well. That's one of the ideas I hope that you will consider as we go along. But what if we took from that mandatory social capital the parts that we could pay less taxes and give more to charity? So here's an illustration. Double a penny every day for 30 days, and you will have one of these three numbers. This is our third poll. I'd like for you to participate and to vote for one of these three choices. If you double a penny every day for 30 days, what will you have? I realize you don't have your calculators handy, and some of you could really put this together very quickly, but just indicate, just for fun. You double a penny every day for 30 days, what will you have? Go ahead and submit your choice. I'm interested to see what you say. All right, we all done with our submitting? Let's look at our answers. All right, it's pretty evenly divided. 35% said 5,368,709,000. 33% said 16,077.7, and 32% said 6,553. All right, we're going to close that, and we're going to look at the answer now. It's amazing. What happens if we can avoid taxes? Here we are. You double a penny every day for 30 days, we have over $5 million. But what happens if we can avoid the taxes that are taken out? Just remove a 20% tax on daily growth. And what happens? This is the sad result. 20% of taxes removed every day from those pennies and our growth, we only end up with $252,000 instead of the other $5 million. Now, for my part, I believe in paying my taxes. I love our country, but I don't want to pay any more than is necessary because I would love to be able to make choices and give to that social and charitable part, as I believe I can have some good choices.
So as you can see, taxes can have a huge impact on our wealth. Some of the three major taxes that we're going to look at right now is capital gains tax, estate and gift taxes, and ordinary income taxes. Each of those can have a significant impact on your wealth. So as we move forward, let's take a look at what are some of the elements of your estate. One is cash, right? Our investments. Other is real estate, your life insurance, and which provides protection for your family, and then your retirement assets. Each of those is an integral part of your plan and needs to be addressed as part of your planning so that you can maximize the value of your estate and what is done with it. So let's take a little bit of question of what are some of the limitations of a will? A lot of people think about doing a will as part of their planning, but that's only one aspect of it. First of all, a will only takes effect upon your death. And so it doesn't provide control of your assets while you're alive. Second of all, it doesn't control life insurance or retirement accounts because those assets are controlled by the beneficiary designation on that contract. More importantly, a will go through probate. People think, oh, if I have a will, I avoid probate. No, that's not correct. If you have a will, you're going to go through probate. The way to avoid probate is with a trust. The probate process can take anywhere from a year to a year and a half, and because of COVID, that's getting extended because the court system's backed up. It's taking longer to process things, and so as you can see, that takes quite a long time. Also, the probate process is very expensive. It can cost anywhere from 2.5% to 4% of the value of the estate, and that's the gross value, not the net value. So if you think, oh, I have $1 million house and I owe $800,000 on it, the fees are based on the $1 million, not the 200 of equity. That can take a huge bite out of the value of your estate. Finally, probate is a public proceeding. There's a loss of privacy. I can walk down to the courthouse and pull up anybody's will who's been filed in the court. So a lot of people don't want to have their personal situations out there in the public, and so having a will do that. So let's take a look at, is your estate plan up to date?
This is a question I really want to put out to all of our friends who are watching our presentation today. Is your estate plan up to date? There are advantages to living trust we're going to be talking about, but there are other really key parts that are really important for you today. Do you have your healthcare documents in place? Are they up to date? Are they in the right place? Power of attorney for both healthcare, for legal and financial matters, and finally bequests. All of these involve your estate plan.
Unfortunately, 70% of Americans die without an estate plan, whether it's a will or a trust. What that does is it leaves a lot of things unsettled, creating a lot of work, a lot of expense, and a lot of delay when they pass away. One of the best gifts you can give your family is by having your affairs in order and having a plan in place for them.
Many of us believe this concept. God is the owner of all of our assets. He's entrusted possessions to us. We are simply the trustees of God's possessions while we're here. We're responsible to manage them in such a way that God will be pleased with us. And what we learn from God's word is that with wise management, God will increase our opportunities and give us more to use for the good of others. So that's really why we're here today. We're talking about estate planning, preparing for the future, but really we're preparing for the present. Because if people have a good plan in place and all the documents are where they need to be, you are taking care of the present and the future, and you're saving big on taxes.
So what is estate planning? In its simplest form, it's creating a plan to manage your assets, both while you're alive and after you're gone, making sure that there's the appropriate documents in place to address those issues.
Estate distribution, what that really means is what we have is going to go to 3 places after we're gone. Hopefully our family. It may include going to your favorite charity, such as your church, or PLNU, or missions. And then the government is standing by. They're going to take their part, and they'll take a bigger part of that social capital part if we haven't put a good plan together. But there are some important things for you to consider.
So when you're doing your planning, some of the things you need to look at is your retirement income, making sure that the retirement accounts are properly structured. Also, providing for your surviving spouse and how that's properly done. Looking at how do we leave assets to our children. A lot of us with kids know that each of our children are different. They have different needs and they may be in different circumstances. And so treating them all the same may not be the best approach. For the business owners in the group, understanding what's my exit strategy for my business, how do I keep my business going along after I'm gone, and planning for that business succession. Finally, we want to look at avoiding paying excess taxes. Like Steve said, I want to pay what I should pay, but I don't want to pay more than I have to. And then for Christians, looking at how do we use our resources to further God's kingdom. And so looking at kingdom gifts, whether that's through tithing and bequests to our charitable organizations, each of those is things that we want to take a look at. So what are some of the common estate planning goals? First of all is leaving distributions to our family and charity, and sometimes our friends or extended family members. But we also want to look at avoiding unnecessary attorney's fees and court costs, and that's structured by which plan we choose to implement. Avoiding the unnecessary delays caused by probate and going through that process. Minimizing our state and federal death taxes or estate taxes. What people don't realize is most of the times a lot of taxes are voluntary in the sense of if you don't plan, you're volunteering to pay the most in taxes. But they create all kinds of options for us to minimize the amount of tax we pay by structuring it properly. And then finally, maintaining privacy. One of the things about a living trust is it enables you to maintain the privacy of your estate, unlike a will.
These are a lot of very grim things we're talking about today. So I threw this slide together, hopefully to lighten it up a little bit. So here we have the IRS agent appearing before St. Peter in heaven. And he asked this crazy question. I thought Congress did away with death taxes. Well, what I've learned in the last 25 years, there have been many, many changes to the amount of exemptions and taxes that people have to pay. I remember back when I started that a family would pay taxes after the first 600,000. Today, that has gone up to well over 11 million for a married couple. There are some wonderful new truths that are in taxes and in laws, but you really have to have the right things in place to take advantage of them. We don't want you to have to pay death taxes.
So why don't people make wills? One, they don't plan on dying, right? They don't want to face reality and they procrastinate. They live in a sense of denial, right? None of us, when we're younger, we think we're invincible and we're going to be around forever. When we get older, we just don't want to accept that reality. Sometimes I think they don't have enough assets to deal with, right? Enough property. But frankly, everybody needs an estate plan. They think that wills are too expensive. Frankly, failing to plan is where the expense comes in. Not denying that planning isn't expensive, sure, but the fact is that failing to plan tends to be much more expensive to your estate than not planning. They don't know how to start, and they're looking for a good estate planning attorney to work with. Or they think that, well, we'll just hold all of our assets in joint name. The problem is that after the first death, you're still going to end up going through probate. And because you failed to plan, it's going to be more expensive. So failing to plan is a huge problem for many people. One of the things that we're going to take a look at is, as you can see in the next slide, all these taxes that we're addressing. We have federal estate taxes with high rates of 37%. You have California income taxes at a top rate of 13.3%. Capital gains taxes generation skipping taxes, which is if you decide to leave money to your grandkids, if you leave too much, the government wants to tax you even more. The estate tax, right? How much can you leave before your estate has to pay tax? Currently, that's $11.5 million. Although under the current law in 2026, that exemption goes down to $5.6 million. Additionally, you have taxes on pensions and retirement accounts, or the income tax aspect of that. And then you're also looking, looking at self-employment and ATM tax. So as we can see, taxes play a significant role in our lives as they affect us and affect our wealth.
Well, Ron, that's a mouthful, all those taxes. All right, folks, we're doing really well. I know how Zoom meetings are, and they're kind of, a lot happens to us. So I want you just to relax a little bit, refocus. It's hard to pay attention in a Zoom meeting very long. We still have a lot more to give to you, but I just want you to feel comfortable. If you need to stretch or whatever, stand up, it's okay. Stay with us, we're gonna keep going, but I want you to know that a lot of people have learned that living trusts are really the way to go.
So who needs a living trust? Well, in California, and that's where I practice, under California law, if you have assets worth more than $166,000, so whether that's one bank account or 10 or real estate, if all you have is a basic will, then you're going to go through the court process called probate. And so that's a good benchmark to look at, is when you want to look at having a living trust. So how does a trust work? First of all, a trust establishes a separate legal relationship or structure between the creator of the trust, called the trustor, the trustee or the manager, and the beneficiary. Initially, when you create a trust, you're all three of those people. So often I'll kid that you become multiple personalities. The benefit of a living trust is that it can continue on after your passing and provide for the administration of your assets. The way you set up a trust, not only do you create the document, but you also fund it, right? You transfer the assets, your bank and brokerage accounts and the real estate, into the trust. Frequently, people will start out by naming themselves as the trustee, and then ultimately, as they get older, they'll transfer that responsibility onto a family member or their children or a corporate or private fiduciary. The wonderful thing about a living trust is you get to control your assets just like you did before. You're still in control. You get to decide how you spend it and who gets it. So let's take a look at some of the benefits that a trust gives us. A trust helps us avoid taxes, and it can provide us with tax savings. One of the best benefits is that it maintains control, right? Should you become incapacitated, you've structured it so that someone is there to be able to continue to manage your assets for your benefit, thus avoiding delays in the administration of your estate and saving significantly on fees. More importantly, it allows you to plan your estate and decide how to leave it and to whom, and what's the most appropriate way to do that. If you have children who are disabled, you don't want to disqualify them from their government benefits, and so it's important to look at doing the proper planning in that regard.
So let's talk about ways that you can give through your estate plan and save big on taxes. Tax savings, I've discovered, and really as your polling showed a few minutes ago, tax savings are very, very important to many of us. That was the top priority that came through. But remember this principle: if you're willing to plan a gift, Congress is willing to provide a tax break. Hard to believe, but they are. But they want us to plan well. So let me talk to you about some giving opportunities. You may want to give to places other than the state and federal government. I know my wife and I do. We are planning to give to our church, maybe to missions. We're giving a part of our estate to Point Loma Nazarene University for student scholarships, both annual scholarships and endowed scholarships. Memorial gifts, honoring a loved one who has passed, very, very important. But I also want you to know that there is a current reality happening because of this pandemic. And Point Loma Nazarene University has been affected by it. And we've established something called the Loma Relief Fund. And so I want to introduce you to our Vice President for University Advancement. Kelly Smith is going to share with us some of the things that are very important to her.
Well, thank you. There were well over 200 participants who registered for this webinar. Some of you might be interested in that fact. Welcome. We're pleased that so many of the Loma community have gathered. You are Loma. We are Loma. While some things may look different this year, so many of the most important things remain the same. So we're committed, and we are Loma. Some of you might say, well, what looks different? And what remains the same? Well, our sincere hope was, and our preference for this fall would have been that we could start face-to-face with flexibility for students and faculty. But higher education institutions in California cannot move beyond the virtual instruction modality until the state moves to stage 3 recovery. So that is different. And these past several months have been unlike any other in the history of PLNU. Much has changed in our world, but those intangibles, those things that make the university a uniquely special and dynamic place remain unchanged. So the past few months, they've been difficult. It was a pleasure watching this talented community implement campus-wide changes quickly with a gracious commitment to one another in the midst of so much uncertainty. Our community is stronger than ever. Your prayers have been felt, your prayers have been effective, and we're moving forward together in ways that are creative, bold, supportive, and innovative, and authentically Loma. Well, all of higher education is adapting to the challenges of COVID-19, and we are no exception. But our students' academic progress is vital. That's why we've created the Loma Relief Fund to ensure our students can continue experiencing a Point Loma education that is more important now than it's ever been. And while there's no way to calculate the full impact of COVID-19 on the PLNU community, the pandemic has caused immense disruption and uncertainty in the lives of our students, their families, and the operations of our university. With a significant drop in enrollment and nearly $4 million allocated to emergency relief for families impacted directly, PLNU has made substantial adjustments to offset $17.6 million in revenue loss from spring. The university has offered a 10%, we call it the COVID disruption discount this fall, and has refunded fall room and board fees for a total of $13 million. To get students back on campus safely, you can imagine how rough that's been. We've invested roughly $3 million in modifications to classrooms, working spaces, and residence halls. The bottom line is the university is estimating a 30 to 35 million loss in this season of great challenge. As many of you know, PLNU has weathered challenges throughout its 118-year legacy, thanks to the generosity of alumni, donors, and friends. Well, we were going back and we remembered a gift to our founding president, Phineas Brzee, to avoid foreclosure, food caravans to keep the campus during World War II, keep the campus fed, and an overwhelming faith that it took to move from Pasadena to San Diego. But through it all, we've been blessed to come out on top with an opportunity to give our students an education even stronger than before, one that remains authentically Loma. But there is no doubt that PLNU could not have survived those challenges without generous and faithful support from the community. While we can report to you that the campus is as strong in purpose and mission as it has ever been, the financial concern for its future exists today as it did in times past. So this is one of those moments in its history that the university is counting on the PLNU community. You may say, what are we committed to? PLNU is committed to ensuring an engaging learning experience with innovative teaching and digital resources to support students' academic progress in this virtual context. providing a robust student life experience with new opportunities to grow, to connect, to build fellowship. And we are committed to welcoming students back to a safe, modified, and adaptable campus as soon as we are able. What will the Loma Relief Fund support? What will those gifts provide? Well, they will provide emergency financial aid for students who've been impacted, funds for sanitizing, for PPE, the personal protective equipment we all have heard so much about, as well as continued physical changes to the campus, dining and meeting spaces. For the virus-related testing and tracing and all that has to happen there, but most importantly, aid for this expected loss in revenue. What I really want you to understand and hear today is that your gifts will go to sustain the university. You're giving to ensure Point Loma is here for future generations. Our prayer is that God would impress upon the PLNU community that now is the time to step up. Now is the time to be counted on behalf of the university that has impacted your life so profoundly, so that the mission continues for generations to come. While none of us expected the year to start out this way, God is doing a new thing in all of us in this season of uncertainty. I'm certain that he's doing a new thing in your lives as well. And I know that it's happening in the lives of our students. As President Brower articulated in a recent town hall to students and families, he said, together we can do this. We can learn in ways we never thought we could. We can be a part of a community that builds one another in a purposeful way around the calling of God in our lives, no matter the modality. So we're living in expectation. We're living in anticipation of all that God has in store for us this year. So you can make this possible by considering a gift to the Loma Relief Fund. And as a university, I want to let you know that we pray for you, the PLNU community, constantly. You're on our minds, you're in our hearts, and we are so grateful for all that you do, for your prayers and for your support. Thank you.
So giving through your will and trust can be accomplished in many, many ways. From your total estate, you can designate a percentage. You can set a specific amount. Or you can do something called leaving the residue, what's left after all the other distributions. What we know is that we work to earn our money. We've worked hard, haven't we? We struggle to save monies. Harder to do today, but we're still trying to. We've learned how to give money. We've learned how to be good stewards. It is vital that we know how to leave money. Whenever that time comes, we want to be ready so that our stewardship can go on.
So what are some of the tax saving strategies you can look at to designate the recipient charity as a beneficiary? Retirement accounts are a great vehicle to look at using for your charitable giving. It helps you avoid the estate taxes, and as we'll show you in the future here, it can actually increase the value of the estate that you're able to leave your beneficiaries and minimize money that ends up with the IRS. Using CDs or mutual funds or life insurance is another wonderful way to benefit a charity as part of your giving strategies. One of the things that we want to take a look at is using what is sometimes referred to as IRA rollover or a qualified charitable distribution. That's a great tax saving strategy for you, for those individuals who have larger IRAs and they're in that older age bracket where they're receiving what we call required minimum distributions. Some of them may not need that income, but they still have to take it, which results in them paying more income tax. Well, Congress allowed us to do what's called a qualified charitable distribution, which allows you to take that RMD and direct it to a charity. One, you get a charitable deduction for it, and number two, you don't have to report that income because you gave it directly to charity. So it's a great way to use that asset to benefit an organization and continue the mission that Point Loma's got going on. It may be done as in addition to your other charitable giving. It can even benefit non-itemizers because you don't have to pay the tax on the income. So let's take a look at another way which we can use IRAs to increase our estate. In most times, people will designate their IRA to their children. The result, though, is that as their children receive that IRA, they have to pay the income tax. And then out of their trust, they'll leave a gift to charity. So in this example, we've got a $50,000 IRA. I gave it to my children. I have a $450,000 trust. I've divided that between my charity and my children. The problem is that after taxes, you're going to lose about $15,000 in that IRA when it goes to your children. By restructuring how you do your plan, if you left that IRA all to charity, the charity gets the entire $50,000. Because it's a charity, it doesn't have to pay income tax on that IRA. And then you refocus the gift to charity that was coming out of your trust directly to your children. As a result, your children receive more, the charity ends up with more, and the IRS ends up with less. So just by restructuring your plan, you can have a significant impact that you leave. What's another income producing strategy that we look at? One is called a charitable remainder trust, or sometimes referred to as what's called a capital gains bypass trust. What that does is it enables us to sell an asset that's highly appreciated that would be subject to capital gains tax, and yet bypass that tax, thus keeping more of that money, the money that you would have spent in tax, to be able to reinvest, generate more income for you. A lot of times people use these types of trusts to liquidate rental real estate that they've held for a long time. It's not generating enough income, or they may just be done with, dealing with the tenants and the trash, and they just want to convert that money into an income stream. And so also helps us to provide a guaranteed retirement income stream in doing that. So how does it work? You create the trust, you transfer the asset to the trust, then you can sell it. And because you've put it in a charitable trust, you're able to avoid the capital gains tax. The way the trust is structured, upon the end of the term, whether it's a period of years or say for your life expectancy, whatever's left in that trust then goes to charity. Because the remainder amount goes to charity, the IRS will give you a charitable deduction for that. And so you're able to generate a tax deduction, which today, for a gift that will go to charity in the future, and you have 6 years in which to use up that charitable deduction. Let's take a look at another example of a strategy, and that is a gift annuity. For smaller amounts, a gift annuity is a great alternative to a charitable trust. It enables us to create an income stream of guaranteed income payments. It can be set up with either cash or assets. A lot of times people will set it up with a smaller amount of cash, a $10,000 gift that they want to convert into income stream. Gift annuities can be added to over time. So you can start out with an initial contribution and then give more in the future, which will result in an increased payout to you. Depending on your need, sometimes it can be set up either as an immediate annuity, so it pays you income streams today, or it can be what's called deferred. In other words, you give it now and you wait till the future to get sometime the income stream. Just like the charitable trust, by using a gift annuity, you also receive a tax deduction, which enables you to reduce your income taxes.
Ron, let me just mention here that Point Loma Nazarene University is licensed by the Insurance Commissioner of California to be able to provide charitable gift annuities with individuals. It's a great way to take care of that property that you have that might have a lot of gain, and yet you're receiving current income. It's like an exchange. But the beauty of a gift annuity is that for individuals that are usually 65 years of age or older, it provides a high amount of of payout. For instance, if CDs are only maturing and they're giving 1 to 2% in income, but you would like more income than that, it allows you to have a guaranteed income stream. Some part of that gift will eventually go to Christian education if it's with Point Loma Nazarene University. Let me share with you the rates. These rates are very exciting. You can see by the age that you are, that when the gift is made, the higher the payout. And what's amazing is that of that payout, 2/3 of it is tax deferred. Usually 70% of the payout is tax deferred for the life expectancy of the person who makes the gift annuity. So it can be a great thing. I'd like you to possibly consider it. But really what I want you to do here today is to let me help you release the money that's trapped in the tax system. Use myself, use Ron Webb, use any attorney you want, but find a way to release the money that's trapped in the tax system. We shared a lot of different things today, but just a real quick, a simple and direct gift through a bequest in a will or trust, through a beneficiary designation, through your IRA or life insurance, or your annuity. A will or bequest gives you an opportunity to make a contingent bequest when other provisions are satisfied, or like we mentioned before, making a percentage bequest. It benefits the tax savings, allows you to have charitable intent, and it's a very flexible thing that you can do. The will or bequest also gives you a lot of different methods for making your will or your trust. It lets you protect your assets now and your heirs today, but it allows you to have a wonderful plan in place for the future. Let's look at some ways to give to charity.
One, it can just be a direct gift, what we call immediate gifts, right? You write a check to the organization, you transfer stock to them. Another way of look is also to do it via beneficiary designations on either retirement accounts, whether it's an IRA or a 401k, using life insurance or what we call TOD or transfer on death accounts. So you specify a specific account and name the organization as the beneficiary of that account. We talked about the qualified charitable distribution, which are a great mechanism to reduce your income taxes for that required minimum distribution that you may not need or want, but you're still going to have to take. A lot of times we can look at using what's called a donor advised fund to structure our planning, and they're becoming more important with the changes in the current tax rules, with the increase in the standard deductions, and helping us make full use of the charitable gifts that we already are making. As we've pointed out, looking at a gift annuity for those types of gifts, and then also various types of charitable trusts, whether we look at a charitable lead trust or a charitable remainder trust to structure larger gifts, and then also potentially setting up your own charitable foundation to enable you to benefit numerous organizations as part of that. So how does an IRA work? Okay, an IRA is a pre-tax money. So as that money is drawn out, you have to pay income taxes on it. With the qualified charitable distribution, you can leave up to $100,000 or direct up to $100,000 of your RMD to charity and get the charitable deduction on it, yet you don't have to pay or report that income, that money as income. So it enables us to do that. Another thing we can look at doing is designating the charity as the beneficiary of an IRA, of our IRA versus our trust. You rarely, if ever, want to designate your living trust as the beneficiary of your retirement account because of the severe tax consequences that occur with that. Looking at a donor advised fund, it helps us to manage what we call the SALT, or the state and local tax limitations that have come into the new tax rules. One of the things is it allows us to give a tax deduction today, yet make our gift over time. I've got clients that have decided, I want to give $50,000 today, but I don't want to give it all at once to that particular charity. So I'll give it today, I get the tax deduction today, but then I can make the gifts out of that donor advised fund to the charity over a certain number of years, or use it as a philanthropic teaching vehicle to train your children, right, to give, and then ultimately turn that account over to them so that they can continue to give. As we talked about, the gift annuity is a wonderful vehicle to receive a tax deduction and also increase your income. Because of the higher payout, you're able to receive a larger income stream. If you fund it with appreciated assets like stock, it enables you to avoid the capital gains tax. So you're actually keeping more money working for you. One of the benefits of a gift annuity is it's simpler than a charitable remainder trust. It's better for smaller amounts. I've had clients work with me, and they initially came in and said, I want a charitable remainder trust. And after I looked at the information, I said, well, that's a great idea, but a better way to do this, a cheaper way to do this, a more effective way for you is this, is using a gift annuity. And so we look at doing what's best for the client in that regard. Some of the things that we can do with a charitable trust, there's several different types. What we call a charitable lead trust, where the initial payments go to the charity and then the remainder goes to your family or you, or what we call a charitable remainder trust, which is just the reverse. You get the income stream, and then when you're gone, whatever's left goes to the charities. The wonderful thing about the charitable trust is that it enables you to avoid the capital gains tax, thus you have more to invest and generate income for you, right? Which would you rather have? 5% of $750,000 or 5% of $1 million, right? So if you had $1 million piece of property and you sold it and paid 25% in capital gains taxes, you'd have $750 left to generate income for you. But using a charitable trust, you would get to keep the entire $1 million, thus receiving a higher income payout for yourself. As we talked about, the CRT enables you to use up your charitable deduction over a over a 6-year period at a rate of 30% of your adjusted gross income. So when you're looking at your planning, we make sure to structure that trust so that we try to use up all of that tax deduction over that 6-year period. One of the things that we don't want to do is leave money on the table in the way we do our planning. A lot of times with the new Secure Act, the Secure Act was some tax legislation that was passed this year, and it changes the payout stream that you can have for a retirement account. In the past, if you named your children as a beneficiary of your IRA, they could stretch it over their lifetime. With the Secure Act, that's limited to 10 years. One of the ways to get around that is using a charitable remainder trust as the beneficiary of that, and then you can stretch it once again over a longer period of time in that regard. So what are the components of a complete estate plan? One is the living trust. With that comes Schedule A, or a list of all the assets, a certification of trust. Even though you do a trust, you also get what's called a pour over will, which is a cleanup document that says, if I left anything out of my trust, pour it into my trust. For those of us that have minor children, we want to do a guardian nomination because we want to pick who's going to take care of our children and not let the government decide who's going to do that. You also need a financial power of attorney to address assets like your IRA or 401k. Should you become incapacitated, somebody needs to have the legal authority to access that account and manage it for you. You also want to have a healthcare directive, or used to be called a healthcare power of attorney, which enables you to specify who would make medical decisions for you and what are your beliefs regarding life-sustaining treatment. In addition to that, we want to look at coordinating our beneficiary information. So in addition to our trust, you want to look at your insurance and your retirement plans, so you make sure that the beneficiary information isn't working at cross purposes with your overall plan. So why do plans fail? People think, oh, I've set up my plan. Unfortunately, even though you've set it up, a lot of times they can fail. Why? Because they aren't set up properly. They're missing key or important documents. They aren't funded properly. The assets didn't get put into the trust. You didn't retire the bank and brokerage accounts. The real estate didn't get into the trust. And so, like buying a car and not getting the engine, right? Doesn't do you a whole lot of good. Often clients will inadvertently defund the trust by taking the house out of the trust because they refinance it. That's not as much That is not as much of a problem now, with lenders allowing you to refinance in the name of the trust, but it still occurs. We also want to take a look at the estate tax laws. Unfortunately, that's a significantly changing area, and it's frequently changing. So you may have done a plan 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That was the appropriate plan at the time, but the rules changed. So now you need to update that plan. Also, your family situation may change, and you need to look at that and how does the plan need to address those changes in your family. So each of those are important reasons to look at and update your estate plan, right? A living trust is a living document. It needs to change with your situation and with the taxes. So for those of you that have an estate plan, I'd encourage you to review it regularly. For those of you that don't, I'd encourage you to get one, to give yourself peace of mind and also to protect your family members.
Ron, I thank you for being a part of the seminar today. Let me just tell all of our viewers, we're going to be sending you an evaluation of the slides, of the recorded presentation, as well as a data form, the actual data form that attorneys use to collect the information so they can prepare what documents that you actually need. Please check out the giving site at Point Loma Nazarene University's website. We have a URL there. We desire to help you. We really do. And so I hope that you'll contact either Ron Webb or myself. Here on the slide are our cell phone numbers and our email accounts. I will be calling you and talking with you and seeing how I can assist you. Our goal is totally transparent. We want you to have your plans in place so that the person that you're called to be is a steward, and you can be pleased knowing you're taking care of yourself and your loved ones and the future of what your goals are really all about. I want to thank you so much for being a part of this today, and now turn this back over to Will Burfett.
Well, thank you, Steve, Ron, and Kelly for the very informative presentation. Such good information for all of us. We are going to move into the Q&A portion now. And I wanted to remind you, if you scroll to the bottom section of your screen, you'll see a chat function. And if you put your cursor over that and press on the chat button, a dialog box will pop up and allow you to pose a question. So please continue to post questions. We already have a few. And Steve, this is a question for you. And you covered a little bit of this. This is about charitable gift annuities. And it says, does PLNU have a gift annuity license? And what is the minimum age and amount to establish a charitable gift annuity?
Thank you for that question. It's a great question. Point Loma Nazarene University is licensed by the Insurance Commissioner of California to work with individuals on gift annuities. The minimum amount is $25,000. And the age, usually we encourage people to be at least age 60. It can go lower. The payout is less. And I had a father set one up for his disabled daughter, and it wasn't he set it up with his funds, but it was going to pay to her at a certain time. And so at that certain time, even though she was younger, it was going to pay to her. So yes, charitable gift annuities are very, very helpful, and I'd love to talk with you more about it.
Great. We have another question about language that could go into a will or bequest, and it said, who should I notify if I have left PLNU in my estate, and what is the proper language that I should use?
Well, you can certainly notify the plan giving department. They would love to know that. That's also helpful for them and the university in doing their planning. As far as the languages, that's where you want to work with the drafting attorney to, one, make sure you properly identify the organization, whether it's the university, and then also if you have left it for a specific purpose. So I've got clients that will set up scholarships, right? So it's a scholarship for the music department, or dealing with buildings, or just a general gift. It's to the organization to be used as however they choose or may need it. And so that's how you would work with your advisor in that.
There's one other thing that I ask people to do, and that is have the attorney set it up so it leaves it to Point Loma Nazarene University, and the charitable tax ID number. We have that. It's on our website, and we'd be happy to share that with you. And then any specifics, as Ron said, wherever you want it to go, or just generally as it's most needed.
Great. Thank you, Steve. We have a gift around life insurance policies. It's asking, do you accept life insurance policies as a gift?
The answer is yes. We are happy to receive life insurance policies. They're a wonderful asset. They can be given while people are still living, simply by working with your life insurance company and turning them into Point Loma Nazarene University. We have an accommodator who helps us to do that, as well as life insurance gifts can come at end of life. So please just make sure that the beneficiary lists Point Loma Nazarene University if that is what your intention is.
Great. We have a question from someone who lives out of state, and they ask, could you assist me, or do I need to find someone local to help me set up a trust?
So if that was directed at me, you would need to find an attorney that's licensed in your state. I can't practice outside of California, but I'm happy to discuss their situation with them in general if they'd like, and they're welcome to contact me, but they would actually need to find a local attorney to implement the plan.
Great. Thank you, Ron. We have another question about IRAs, and it's asking if TSAs the same thing.
Yes, I referred to IRAs in the general sense when we're talking about retirement accounts. So whether it's a 401k, which is usually from a for-profit company, or a TSA, which is typically coming from a nonprofit or governmental agency, they're essentially a pre-tax retirement account.
Great, thank you, Ron. We have another question around serving as an executor of an estate, and the question is, can PLNU serve as an executor of my estate?
Point Loma has done this before. We like to know about it ahead so we can make sure with the trustee or the executor that things are set up properly. For that to be done, naming Point Loma Nazarene University, and then allow us to help you get ready for that. It's very, very limited who we do that with and how often, but it has happened before, and we're happy to help you to carry that out if that's what your wish is.
Thank you, Steve. We have a question about the Brazee Society. The question is, I noticed on your website, the Brazee Society. Can you tell me a little bit about this group, and do they host an event for members? And are there any other benefits provided as a member of this group?
Kelly, would you like to answer that one?
We're excited we've got a lot of exciting things planned for this group in the coming year. Actually, this year we had a lot of exciting plans for together that have been placed on hold. It's an area that we're looking really closely at because we understand how vital it is to bring you regularly back to campus and in partnership with the students so that you can see where those dollars are being invested. So absolutely, would love to chat with you more about that. Good things ahead for our Brazee Society members as we look closer at that group of people and really listen to what some of their desires are for how to stay connected.
Let me just add one thing to that, Kelly. If an individual has made a future gift in their will or trust, or a beneficiary designation, and they let us know with a gift intent, sign and date that, we are happy to admit you to the Brazee Society. We have over 1,000 families who are leaving future gifts to the university. We'd love for you to join that, and please do talk with us so we can help you become a part of that wonderful group.
Thank you, Steve. We have a couple more questions, but I just wanted to remind everybody, if you want to post a question, please scroll down to the bottom of your screen on the chat function there, chat button. If you click on it, it'll prompt you with a new dialog box, and you can go ahead and post your question there. We're happy to have that answered for you. Steve, there's another question around bequest and language for endowed scholarships. And the question is, if I wanted to establish an endowed scholarship through a bequest, how does that process work? And is there a minimum gift size to establish that scholarship, that endowed scholarship?
Wonderful question. Today, the amount to establish an endowed scholarship is $30,000. If it's going to come through a bequest, we ask for you to consider at least a future gift of at least $50,000 to $100,000, because depending on how young a person is today, when that's put into our will or trust, time will have an effect on that. When I first began 25 years ago, it was $10,000 to put an endowed scholarship together. Because of inflation, today that amount is $30,000. And please make the gift as significant as possible so that we can make sure your wishes are carried out. So at least $50,000 for a future gift, better upwards to $100,000 for a deferred gift that will come forming an endowed scholarship.
Wonderful. And we have another question about IRAs, in particular the IRA rollover. It's kind of a two-part question. One, the question is, can I make a gift from my IRA rollover anytime during the year, or is there only a certain time of year I can do that? And there's been talk that this provision may go away someday. Is that going to continue in the short term? Do you have any idea when it may end?
Right. So you can make the gift anytime. As people know that have IRAs, you have your required minimum distribution. So if you don't take it, you get penalized 50%. So as long as you take your and you can take your RMD anytime you want, so you can designate it anytime during the year. As far as how long Congress will allow the qualified distribution to continue, that I don't know. It's one of those things where they continually re-implement it as part of the plan. So it's one of those things where we don't know how long they're going to allow it. It's expired in the past, and then they've reissued it. So it's something you just have to check every year to go, is it still in place if I'm going to utilize it this year?
Terrific. We had one more question, two more questions rather. Ron, we have a question about the cost for your services. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that now. We can certainly provide the question or the answer to the person who asked this privately.
Sure.
But I think the best way to get a hold of Ron certainly would be either through his email below or at his office number there listed on this slide. And Ron, I don't know if you'd want to add anything more to that.
Yeah, it depends on the circumstance and what's involved in the plan. You know, it's hard to say, you know, what's it going to cost to fix my car? Well, I don't know. What's wrong with your car? Each estate plan is a bit different. We have some general ideas. Typically, the way we work is we'll sit down with the client, have a free consultation. Once we have an understanding of what the total scope of the plan is, then we can give them an appropriate cost for doing what's needed to be done.
Terrific. And then our last question before I pass it over to Kelly to wrap up, it's a question about the Loma Relief Fund. And the question is, where can I find more information? And I wanted to go ahead and answer that simply by saying in our follow-up email to each of you, we will include a link to our website that gives you specific information, really an overview of the Loma Relief Fund, why it is so vitally important to our students, to the university, and really provide a link in there as well to our giving section should you be interested in supporting it. I wanted to pass it back over to Kelly Smith. She wanted to share a fantastic story of generosity and dedication to PLNU, especially during this really tough time for everyone. This COVID-19 pandemic's been tough, certainly on all of us, including our students in the university. Kelly, did you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you. Well, what a great privilege to be sitting in the seat as vice president to make this phone call, a phone call to PLNU community members A phone call of deep, deep gratitude and thanks, and that involved tears. 20 years ago, long before my arrival at PLNU, a charitable remainder trust was set up 20 years ago. For those 20 years, these community members benefited from the payout of that. And in 2020, the college received the remainder of that estate. In God's goodness and providence, he knew how vital those dollars would be in 2020, in this time of great crisis to the university. I get weepy thinking about it because those dollars mean so much this year. And we think of how awesome it was that 20 years ago, they would just have no sense how vital those dollars would be today. So to make that phone call to those generous people through tears, Bob, when I got a hold of Dr. Brower and said, Dr. Brower, you're not going to believe this. The remainder of this estate came to us. Here's the gift. He was actually standing in a part of on the campus where their brick was laying. So these are people who've been a part of the community for a long time, and looked down and was reminded of God's goodness, of his providence, of his looking out for this university even now. I want you to think about, as you make decisions about your estate and the things that you're doing today, what the university might look like later, and what God might do with those dollars in sustaining and keeping the university moving forward to continue impacting students in the ways that it does, needed now more than ever. So again, grateful that you've joined us, beyond grateful for this time that we've had with you. Look forward to others of these coming up. We will continue, especially as we look at the survey and hear how you react to the information today, and maybe even provide more information about how we can be of service to you in this area. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, again, we are so grateful that you're able to join us today. Please know we are going to be sending out a follow-up email that includes some materials covered today, as well as a survey and the data sheet that Steve mentioned. And we'll also be providing answers to the remaining questions that are out there. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.